Hello, it's Kevin Annett. It's February 3rd. I wanted to read to you a short excerpt from my new book, Samuel Wedge, Memoirs of Necropolis. It's a autobiographical piece of fiction based loosely on my life, but also going into a lot of other things. And it's released now through Author House. You can get it through Amazon.com or anywhere. That is happening in conjunction with our new blog radio program, Radio Free Canada, which will be airing Sunday, March 1st, the first program. It's every week on Sundays, 3 p.m. Pacific Time, 6 p.m. Eastern Time at bbsradio.com/Radio Free Canada. So please tune in for that. I'm going to read a short excerpt from this book as kind of an insight, a guide into life these days for our movement and myself. My life hung by the slenderest of threads, saved only by my comrades. Without them, I would have been doomed. We stick together like this, from one end of the world to another, few in number but sure of one another, and confident in the march of history. And that's a quote from Victor Serge in his book Memoirs of a Revolutionary. Yesterday, I took a drive all by my lonesome past the curve of the peninsula, where the Atlantic breeze blasts everything clean and clear. Dolores didn't come because I asked her not to. Then I found a dune not littered with beer cans and butts and prickly grass, and hunkered down with my gin and tonic and some cheese sandwiches to see if I could forget my ogres for a while, or even find out whether I wanted to. It would have been a perfect day, save for something I saw on my way down there that poked at me until night came. I heard their shouts before their little gathering hove into view as I made a right onto the Halifax River overpass. The dozen people were gathered outside some government office. They had an old-fashioned megaphone with them, and they held aloft the kind of homemade protest sign that I used to excel in cooking up with just a night's notice. I was moving too fast to read their declaration, but angry words about children and benefits and making rich people pay shot into the open window of my car like determined gnats. And as I slowed to make the turn and look toward them, a young black woman in the protest glared at me and jerked her middle finger in my direction. 40 and more years ago, and even 10 summers past, I had been that black woman. I resented her briefly, not even for her seeing my car or my pigmentation rather than me, but because she remained what I had lost. Blunted and shattered finally, I had subsided to Holly Hill, Florida, something more than a veteran after 10,000 battles, yet still breathing somehow after all of my demanding of justice from a machine. But still there are children eaten by Moloch, and so the shouts and placards go on, with or without me. It's just that my arms feel not only heavy nowadays, but ridiculous, holding up the obvious for the world to gawk at and ignore like it always has. All that said, the protesters haunted me, out there on the dunes, even after an hour's sunlight and my emptied flask and full stomach should have exercised them. I felt old and useless. But then I recalled Gail. Gail weighed in at over 300 pounds that morning, that she had a Weasley Art Sanderson by the throat and backed up against the wall of his United Church office building like the villain she knew him to be. Her righteous anger melted the bureaucrat into nothing as she screamed in his face that bright, bright morning. "How fucking dare you," she screamed as he winced. "How fucking dare you show your face after what you've done to Sam and his family?" She gripped Sanderson by his business suit lapels and resumed shaking him. For all of his authority, the guy was completely disarmed, and he just hung there helpless. Gail gave him a final shove and backed away. "You're a pathetic, cowardly little turd, just like the priest who raped me," she declared, while Art scurried away like a mole back into his church office. It was just a month after Sanderson had fired me from my pulpit. Our mixed gaggle of protesters exploded in laughter and began applauding the huge, ill-clad woman, who had been a regular at our Port Alberni food bank and even came to church sometimes. Gail had begged and borrowed the ferry and the bus money to join us that day in Vancouver at our protest. And like a prima ballerina after her fifth curtain call, Gail turned to us with an enormous smile and nodded to our applause with a long and graceful bow. And then she declared somberly, "They can't get away with it all the time." God has indeed picked the destitute of this world to shame the wise and the strong, but sadly, not that often. For Gail vanished after that, ending up dead the following year in the first of many such mortalities. But we had all stood in her glory that day when she had counted coup against the beast and his minion, and somehow we found the same radiance in ourselves. Stay tuned for more. Thank you.